All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the GGDA January 2023 meeting. Yay! And the crowd goes legitimately crazy because we're in game dev, so yes, we're legitimately crazy. So, we have a great panel today. We love doing these How to Succeed in Game Jam panels because no matter how many times we do them, we learn new things. We've been putting on game jams here in Georgia for well over a decade. And every time it's different, and every time it's even more fun. So I have a series of announcements before we turn it over to our exquisite panel. Number one announcement is this. Yeah, you see right now the ggda.org website. You're getting nothing. Tomorrow, you should be getting that. Yes, we have a brand new website, all sorts of funky new things. Thanks. Yeah, go ahead and scroll up. You'll have info on Siege, our events, a whole bunch of the news set aside for you. Yeah, keep going on down and down. Ways you get involved, volunteering. And this is a quick look at some of our members. We have more on the next ones. And you can sign up for the newsletter. All right, take us back up to the... Actually, you can just click on About if you would be so kind. You see the About nav at the very top of the screen. Yep. And click on the Georgia game industry. We've consolidated a lot of information in one place. Yep, the Georgia game industry right there. Perfect. Gives you a lot of information about the industry, the tax credit program, the studios that are here, and all of your success. I think there's a Finite Reflections one right at the top as we scrolled on by. So the question is, will this be available tomorrow? Let's ask Squarespace. Hey, Squarespace, it's available. We thought it'd be available by now today, but it's still saying transferring domain. So it is available when Squarespace says it's available. One of the other things, go ahead and click on Join. ggda.org. It will not be Cow Amethyst, whatever. That we have not changed the association name yet to Cow Amethyst. That's next week. No, because in order to do it, the old site will be all under here once we have successfully migrated. Unfortunately, apparently there's a lot of forces against migration these days. All right, if you would click on the Join again, you'll see, do we have, About. I'm sorry, click on About. You'll see the chapters. Click on chapters if you'd be so kind. Yeah, we are going to have special sections for all of the chapters. We currently have an Atlanta, Athens, Augusta, and Columbus chapter. We've got an event actually coming up in Columbus, which is part of why I wanted to come to this site. On February 17th, we will be helping put on the Scholastic Esports and Game Development Conference at Columbus State University in association with the North American Scholastic Esports Federation and the Georgia Department of Education. So any of you who are interested in the educational side of esports and game dev, and I think there are one or two of those people in this room, keep tuned in because I'm hoping we'll be live streaming that so you don't just have to come down to Columbus for it, but one way or another it'll be an excellent event. And you are hearing it first. Because apparently it's going to be announced tomorrow, but I was told I could do a sneak peek at it today. So that's your sneak peek. February 17th in Columbus, Scholastic Esports and Game Development event. And let's see, Game Jam locations. We're going to hear from some of the Game Jam location folks here today. I do want to say that I'm very happy that I think this is tied for the most we've had in Georgia with Augusta, KSU, Georgia Tech / GSU, SCAD Atlanta, SCAD Savannah, and I know I'm missing somebody. There's one more in the mix. I'll have to go grab my list and hope that they're not a sponsor who I've forgotten from the list. But yeah, a lot of good locations for you to jam at. I think most of them are handling it virtually as well. So do our panelists know about the KSU location? No? If not, I can ask some of the faculty to talk about it. Who knows the best about it? All right, somebody back here who knows the most about the KSU location. They're all passing the buck. All right, we'll leave it to the students to tell us how it works. All right, nobody else if none of you want to make announcements about it, we will let the students talk about the Game Jam location here, how it'll operate. All right. We have one faculty member coming on up to talk about the KSU Game Jam location. And now I can actually go look at my stream and see how cockeyed I made it. Here we go.
Hey, I'm Kevin. I work here, obviously. So we're hosting Game Jam site on campus. As usual, it's going to be in the Atrium building down there. And it's going to be starting at 5 p.m. Friday. So that's February 3rd. And we'll have an opening ceremony Check-in will be before that, so feel free to come in earlier. Event parking is going to be the parking deck. That's, I think, P60 or like West parking. So whenever you come in, just look for the parking deck. There's only one on campus. And then come in, check in, and then opening ceremony will be at 5. Go to the opening ceremony, have a good time. We'll reveal the theme for the game jam at that point. And pretty much, yeah, game jam from like, I don't know. What's registration? Yeah, so you can sign up now on the website. We have the Global Game Jam website. You can sign up on our location, and there's a $25 fee, but I believe that's only if you want food, t-shirt, button, stuff like that. If you don't want anything, you got your own food plans. I guess it's free to come in and sign up, and we'll still get you a badge at least. But if you're looking for a free food, well, not free food, but very reasonably priced food for the whole weekend, $25 with the t-shirt. I mean, a t-shirt by itself could be $20. So pretty good deal.
So that's
per person. And then we have online too. So if you're doing online, again, you don't have to pay because you won't really need to come in to get the food. But we do have an online section as well. That's going to be run by Nick Murphy on our Discord. So there'll be a link to that Discord, I think, on the Game Jam sign up. And yeah, then we have a closing ceremony at Sunday at 5, and we're good to go. Cool.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick.
Well, yes, so it should be pretty much the same. And then I think as you sign up, there's like a little thing that says virtual or in person. So just pick whichever one that you're doing.
Thank you very much. And we're going to learn about the other locations as well. So I will not be part of this panel. I will be monitoring the stream. If you have comments, questions, sarcasm, whatever, go ahead and post it in the chat, and I will relay the sarcasm only. No, I'll relay the questions. So start posting them now. And let's bring up our panel, and we'll get them take it away. Kartik, if I get you there, that makes it an easier way to pass the mic back and forth. All right. And we'll get all of our panelists to introduce themselves, and if they're involved with the Game Jam location, we'll get them to talk about it. Let me get the camera adjusted. And whenever you get a question, please repeat the question because the stream cannot...
Hello. Is this only going to the stream, or is this supposed to be going? Oh, okay. Sorry, stream. Sorry for tapping on the microphone. All right, in that case, I'll take this off so I can project better. And I'm not texting during this panel. I've got the questions on here. So, hello everyone. My name is Kartik. I'm going to be helping moderate this panel today. And a little bit about me. I started my own indie game studio, Finite Reflection Studios, about 7 years ago, coming right off the heels of the Global Game Jam that year, where I participated at SCAD's location. That's where my studio co-founders all met for the first time, and that's where our studio started, from the game that we made during that jam, which ended up winning Best in Georgia, which helped because GGDA gave us some more resources to help us get our studio off the ground. Since then, I've participated in somewhere in the ballpark of 15 game jams, and amongst which Ludum Dare 59, our team ranked 20th in the world, which was pretty exciting. GMTK Jam, which is is the largest game jam hosted on itch.io. Our team was ranked 15th in the world, and a couple of other game jams. I normally like to dress nicer for events like this, but it felt like too appropriate that I wear a Train Jam hoodie. I did do Train Jam 2 years as well, which is unfortunately not happening anymore. Hopefully will happen again someday in the future, where you take a train from Chicago to San Francisco the few days leading up to GDC and make a game from the moment the train departs to the moment the train arrives, which, if that didn't already sound hard, is amplified by the fact that there's no internet the entire time you're on this train. So it's just like challenge mode jam time. But that's enough about me. I'm going to pass the mic along. If you could just introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so my name is Hannah. I'm currently a student at Georgia State University. I'm the president of the Game Development Club at Georgia State University, so shout out to PantherDeviants if you're watching. Some PantherDeviants here as well. I am studying game design and development. I work with an indie studio, Deev Interactive, on a game called LightBreak, which, similar to Kartik, was a global game jam game that won Best in Georgia, and GGGA pushed us along and kept us going, and we are, knock on wood, going to release sometime this year. So super exciting stuff. I've also participated in a bunch of game jams, mostly online, because I started like COVID era, and that was just easiest. But I've also hosted an online jam through itch.io, and I plan to help co-host the 2023 Global Game Jam site, the Georgia Tech site. So you can register online. We will be in person for it. It will be that weekend, the first weekend of February. So if weekends work for you, come jam with us. We're in the city, so really good restaurant accessibility, MARTA accessibility if that's important, and we'll have pizza. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Rob Harwood. Let's see, I am a recent graduate from here at KSU. I used to be the co-president back in 2019 and 2020. I've participated in around 9 game jams and organized about 3. And yeah.
Hey, I'm Ken Little. I'm the current student and current president of the KSU Game Design Development Club. I'm fairly new to game design. I'm mainly more into computer science, but I'd like to do games design for hobbies. And yeah, I hosted my first game jam last semester, and that was a whole lot of fun. And I'm excited to host help with hosting the global game jam, and also continue hosting for future game jams for KSU.
Thank you all for the lovely introductions. Sorry, this is just going to happen over and over again, isn't it? That's fine. So let's start with the first question, which, just to break the ice a little bit, tell us your favorite game jam story. And I'm going to just exempt myself from this question. Have fun. You got the best. I do? Okay, I'll do it, fine. I mean, so I mentioned it earlier, but our studio started because of the Global Game Jam in 2016. I showed up there with my best friend and at the time roommate, Eric, who was the only other person I knew at this jam. We waited for the theme announcement. The theme was announced. We sat down at a table with like 20 other people, and there were like ideas flying across the table, and I was just sitting there with severe imposter syndrome, being like, I sure as heck don't know what I'm doing here. I don't belong here. I should just like quietly leave while no one's looking. And as people at the table slowly formed a group, because everyone was just super excited and far more loud-spoken than I am, what you may not realize from me being up here is I am not a very loud-spoken person, but I got very, very lucky because after all of the very excited, loud people had left the table, I was left with just me and 3 other people. And we were like, hey, do you want to make a game? Do you want to make a game? It's like, I can do some art. I could do some coding. I'm kind of a decent musician. And I'm like, okay, sure. Let's maybe make a team, I guess. And then we made a game. And it turned out the person who said that they could kind of do some art was really freaking good at it. The person who said they could kind of do some music was also really freaking good at it. And then we made a game that turned out to be really good. And I learned a lot from that jam and have learned a lot from every jam following that. And I'm excited to share my experiences from all of that. So.
Okay, so my favorite jam memory / experience was kind of similar to Kartik. I had major imposter syndrome, and I didn't really feel like I should participate in jams until I got some more experience under my belt, which is it's backwards. Participate in jams, that is the experience that you get under your belt. Trust me, yeah. But my friend Adam, shout out to Adam, he's on the LightBreak team as well. He was wearing a badge that said Jammer, and this was the 2020 GSU location. So it was just like handwritten. It was really funny. I thought that being a jammer was super funny, and that's the reason why I joined, because I wanted a name tag that said Jammer on it. No lie, I wasn't doing anything that weekend. It was on my campus, so I was like, heck yeah, might as well. And me and Adam were friends, so I got to hang out with Adam. But yeah, that's that decision has impacted my life in so many ways. I never thought that we would have won, because I didn't think that I was good enough. My team was freaking killer. And I was definitely the newest person on my team. But from there, it's made me go like, oh, I can do this. Because you really only have to commit like X amount of time, and you'll grind out that XP in such a short period of time that it is so worth it.
All right. I have a few memories, but I think my favorite one would be the game jam where I invited pretty much any of my friends that didn't have a team already, and we just made a massive one. It was like 10 people. We all made a team and worked with Unreal Engine for the first time, and our repo was a mess. Someone pushed like 10 gigabytes of assets into it, and I had to fix it. Stressful, but it was still a lot of fun, and I think pretty soon after that, I was co-president of the Game Dev Club, and yeah.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I never, similar to Hannah, I didn't really participate in a few game jams because I didn't think that, I was good enough. Back then, I had no experience with coding, and so I could do art, but, I also wanted to help out with the actual game part of it. But I think it was actually during 2020, we decided to do, like, the online game jam because, we didn't want to stop doing game jams because of it. And I decided to be like, why not just participate in the game jam? And so I got into my team, and at first, it was new, it was different for me. So I wasn't all used to like working so fast. But I think participating in that did like, inspire me to be like, okay, maybe doing game jams is something I do want to continue doing. And I'm here now, so yeah.
So, moving on to the next question. How do you prepare for a game jam? What do you bring? What do you do leading up to the jam? And mentally, physically, how do you prepare? I'm going to lean on the mental side of this question. I prepare usually by setting forth a goal. So my very first jam, I had no preparation whatsoever. I went in with no idea, A, how to do anything, B, what I wanted out of it. I just was dragged there by a friend. I was like, this could be fun. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And that was a totally valid way to approach your first ever jam, because until you've done it, you don't know what it's like, and you don't know what you need to work on. After that, however, every single jam following that, I progressively got better and better about setting very, very precise and achievable goals for each jam. One jam, my entire goal was do the 3D art. I was like, if the game doesn't work, doesn't matter. Did I do 3D art? Great, I accomplished it. Because I wanted to learn Blender at the time. I'd never done it before, and I was like, if I can just do that one thing, at the end of the jam, I'll be happy. Since then, my goals have evolved based off of like what I feel like I want to work on for myself, both professionally and out of hobbyist interest. But I found that the cases in which I've seen friends and colleagues struggle the most in jams is due to arriving with either out of scope objectives or out of scope perspectives on what they think they will accomplish, or not having them all at all. Like I said, if it's your first time, it could be fine, but sometimes coming in with zero goal or zero metric for success can set you up for failure, because then you're just like, I didn't walk away making Skyrim 3, what the heck? I'm a failure, I guess, and that's just not how it works. So that's my advice, is to prep, just set a goal, and have a clear success metric for yourself, and focus on at least accomplishing that.
So I guess that my prep is kind of similar to that, in the sense that like in kind of heavily emphasizing the personal goal out of it. Like, freaking incredible that you've gotten so high up there in a bunch of game jams. But kind of my goal going into game jams, and surprisingly we won, or I guess not surprisingly, but we won 2020 Global Game Jam and Best in Georgia and whatever, so that was awesome. And maybe that's kind of skewed things a bit for me and made it easier for me to just go into game jams with the mentality of, I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to get like these personal wins, and that's why I say heavy emphasis on personal growth, because I think that if you go in with this mindset of like, well, what's going to impress the judges, what's going to get us up there in the ranks, then like Hardik said, you're going to let yourself down. But more importantly, you're not going to be focusing on what's actually good for you and what is actually important to keep learning. So I think that, and then just kind of thinking about what do you want to do, what do you think that you're good at, and what's kind of like that middle ground between your practicing pre-existing skills while also building on those skills and improving.
All right. So yeah, like they've said, flying by the seat of your pants is a valid strategy, but having some kind of goal is a good idea. Personal growth, I think, is probably going to be a consistent theme here. For me, a lot of it is trying something I've never done before. This upcoming Game Jam, I know I want to do some C++ programming in Unreal Engine. Maybe. I'll see if I get there. And also networking. Networking is a huge thing for me during these game jams.
Actually, Rob, before you pass it, could I bother you to also provide some physical things that you would recommend doing as well?
Oh, yeah. So physical things, I would suggest like a change of clothes, stuff to shower with, hopefully something to sleep on. You definitely want to think about how you're going to sleep, and you definitely should sleep. Let's see. Yeah, toiletries. Make sure you brush your teeth, that kind of stuff.
So honestly, similar to what Rob was saying, one thing I think is a good preparation is to kind of experiment and go outside of what you usually do. Because I do notice that one thing when people are doing their game jams is that they struggle with editing their trailers. And it's because nobody has real much experience with editing. And so, it can be kind of difficult. So I think one thing that I think people should keep in mind is maybe dabble into different skill sets, because maybe that skill set may actually be useful for the game jam.
Whoever's got it, I'll let you repeat this. Beanborg on YouTube says, having fun is a good goal.
Having fun is a good goal. That is an excellent goal. Because that is ultimately what you're there for. Like, I think I'm just going to echo what Hannah just said earlier. Like, winning is great, and it's very kind of, I don't know, disingenuous coming from two people who have won a lot of game jams. But, like, if that is your focus, ironically, I've found the teams that are so laser focused on winning end up being the ones that just don't win as often. Whereas the teams that are you just see them at the jam and they're having a good time, and then voila, their game is fun because they're having fun. It just kind of works that way. That's a great comment. I'm going to combine questions 2 and 3 because I feel like they go really well together. So question 2, once you arrive, how can you either form or join the best and or right team for you? And once you have your team, how can you come up with a good game idea? I think those go together because finding a team is, in my opinion, about complementing and improving on your own skills. So if your goal is you are a fresh novice and you really want to get good at this one thing, whether it's coding, art, whatever, it's best to try to find a team that already has someone that does that, who knows maybe a little bit more than you. It can be a little bit challenging if you join a team that is entirely novices and you are just, one of many people that doesn't know how to do the thing you're trying to do. It can be fun if your personalities all gel and no one's going to be upset if you end up with a trash fire, but everyone still learned a lot. That's a valid win. That's great. But if you're, my advice for novice and or first-time jammers is try to find a team with at least one person who is willing, obviously ask, don't just assume someone's there to teach you, willing to show you the ropes on that. And kind of related to that, coming up with the right idea means playing to your team's strength. Not every team's going to have the same composition. One team's going to end up with 5 coders and 1 artist. Maybe that team shouldn't make a visual novel. Just saying. And, vice versa. You got 5 artists and 1 coder, probably don't make an RPG. Play to your strengths. Like, really, ask, as you're forming your team, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What is your skill set? What do you want to learn? And make sure that your idea, goal number 1, meets everyone's goals, and then goal number 2 fits the theme. Because at the end of the day, again, the theme is there just to give some cool creative spark of an idea, but you should be there for you, yourself, and your team to learn, grow, and become better at making games.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. I also think that it's important to try to find people, along with people who make sure that you have like a good balance of people. So you want to make sure that you have at least one artist. I feel like programming is oftentimes prioritized because that can be a stopping point for a lot of teams. But make sure that you have like a good balance of everybody. I also agree with play to your strengths. LightBreak is a music-based game, and the reason why it's music-based is because we were fortunate enough to have someone named Saoirse on our team who is actually a composer. So that was one of our strengths, and we were like, shoot, well, let's make a music game. And it was awesome because we had that in our wheelhouse. I also think that it's important to find people who are wanting to use similar software as you. Like Rob was saying, he wants to start using Unreal. So if somebody was dead set on using Unity or just didn't want to learn Unreal, or whatever other game engine you want to use for it, it won't be a match. And fighting, there's so many things that well, I guess not necessarily fight over, but there's so many things that you need to discuss and figure out as a team in a game jam, and you don't have that much time, and software is not one of them that you want to be trying to figure out. So yeah, that's my advice.
So what a lot of people tend to do is form their teams a little ahead of time. Either I think some folks are trying to here, but you can on the Discord or at the event right then. Either way works. Personally, I like to do it a little bit ahead of time, so that way I can figure out what kind of software people want to use, get a feel for their personality. I'm a little competitive, but I'm not like a militant kind of person, so that just doesn't vibe with me. So finding the right people definitely helps.
I think that you should have diverse set of people in your teams. Of course there has to be some programmers and musicians and artists. And I feel that it's important to have experienced people in your team, of course, but I think it's also even more important to have that novice in there, because the novice, they can't be in a team full of other novices. They can't really learn from newbies. But if that one person is in a team full of people who know what they're doing, they can learn a lot from that. Like I said, when I first started my game jam, me being in that game jam with other experienced programmers inspired me to want to get into programming myself. And so I feel like if I didn't have that experience, it may be a little different. So I think it's important to, it's good to, have that mindset of wanting to win, but I also want to, reinforce, have fun and also learn something new with game jams, because you can learn a lot from it.
Thank you. Great responses. So next question. Once you've come up with a game idea, how do you plan to implement it, and how do you work towards actually accomplishing that goal? My thoughts on this, I think this one is probably going to have hopefully the widest range of school of thoughts on, because it just kind of boils down to project management, and there's a lot of different ways of going about it, and really individual personalities can impact this a lot. My approach and some of the things that have worked for me personally have been focusing on finding the fun as early as possible. But that's very, very heavily skewed, because my goal for the last few jams that I've done has been to end the jam with a finished, fun, complete game. And by complete, I don't mean I can launch it on Steam tomorrow. I mean just it has a beginning, middle, and end, and it doesn't require the developer hovering over the shoulder of the player to tell them how to play it. But I think for most people that is not a goal you should have for your first 2 or even 3 jams, because just having even a prototype is a pretty good first 2 or 3 jam goals. That being said, I think one of the ways that I was able to accomplish having as many finished games as I have during jams is that I try to have the core fun of my game done within the first 2 to 3 hours of the jam, like as aggressively as possible. And almost every time when I've got like a rough working prototype of this, and I mean like a white box moving around in a default Unity skybox world, me and my team end up instantly throwing out a lot of original ideas that we had, because we realized, you know, what we thought was going to be fun, we were just talking about it, ended up not being fun actually holding a controller and playing it. So that's my second piece of advice. Piece 1 is get it playable as fast as possible, and piece of advice number 2 is do not be afraid to pivot. You should and will pivot very, very often, because you can talk about the greatest game idea in the world, and the second you start implementing it, you may realize it's just not fun. It's just not what we thought it was going to be. Or something turned out to be way more complex than it sounded when you were just talking about it. And just don't lock yourself into an idea that no one's having fun implementing, and don't lock yourself into an idea that isn't fun right off the bat. I think those are the 2 key points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of that was good advice. I think that for me personally, going about things, what I like to do is somewhat opposite of that, where and I mean, don't get me wrong, we will get halfway in and be like, ah, shoot, well, we have to scrap this. But I like to think through, and this could just be because I've done a lot of online jams with people in different states and different time zones, so kind of making sure that we all know what we're doing was super important for that. But I think that it's, for me, important to take some time, and more time than you might want to plan out all of those ideas that you have, and kind of think through the core gameplay loop. And part of it is to make sure that it's fun. But part of it is just to make sure that you don't get halfway through development and your core gameplay loop just doesn't work with all of the other variables. So I think that having like a very set planning phase is super important. I also think that like you said, being able to accomplish it is a lot more important than this like cool novel idea. So if you do end up scrapping things, I think that that's important. Being flexible with your ideas is important. And like you said, just making sure that you can knock out the basics 100% before moving on to these crazy cool novel ideas.
So yeah, a lot of it is creating a minimum viable product just right off the bat. You want to make sure you focus on 1 or 2 mechanics specifically. Maybe you have a few more in order for those to work, but you just want to narrow down your scope as much as you possibly can. And you can create a much more polished and interesting prototype or game jam game doing that. And yeah.
So I mentioned before that I'm an artist, and what I usually do when I'm coming up with ideas is that I start off with like a basic idea of what I want. So, for example, I could have like a circle or something, or a ball or something, and then I build off those ideas, like a ball bouncing, and I keep building off those ideas, a ball bouncing on a wall, and on and on. So I think a good way, if you're really struggling on what idea you want to have for your game, just start off with like a base idea of what exactly you want and keep building it off from that. I do know that in teams that it can be like when you're coming up with the idea, it can like struggle with setting it off because everyone has like conflicting ideas of what they want. And for that, I feel that sometimes you may need to be a little more open-minded about maybe changing your mind about your idea, because you may think you have like the best idea in the world, but everyone else disagrees, and arguing back and forth about, oh, I want this to be the idea for my game, like you're not going to make any sort of progress if you just keep arguing it off. So sometimes you may just need to be more open-minded, and maybe you guys can come up to agreement and build off other people's ideas to create something with that.
Thank you. Great responses as always. So, next question. During the jam, how do you communicate effectively with your team? And kind of related to that, what kind of project management learnings have you had over the course of all of your jam experiences? For me personally, if it's an online jam, I just use Discord a ton. We'll create like a private channel and we'll have regular calls. If it's an in-person jam, then usually communication's a lot easier because you're all sitting in the same computer lab or somewhere together and you're able to just get a lot of good FaceTime. To me, I think that the important part about communication during a jam is finding a good cadence for it and finding a good rhythm to it. Different people need different amounts of hand-holding, and different people's personalities may manifest themselves in interesting ways during a jam that you, as a team member hoping to accomplish things, has to keep in mind. It's really a test of how well you as a person can work with other people at the end of the day, because you and everyone are going to be under a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, and I don't know, all kinds of stress. You're going to be up till late hours. Do you know exactly how you behave when you are tired and or hungry? Do you know how your friends behave when they are tired and or hungry? And are you prepared to find out or, help them through that? I think it's really important to keep in mind that, like, not everyone's going to be on their best behavior 24/7. And especially as emotions run high towards the end of the jam and like things are coming together, you have to be a little bit more sensitive towards not only your own feelings, but everyone else's feelings too. And just general project management tips, I try to, as usually the producer on my team, I try to be proactive in checking in on people's progress and not just sort of trusting that, oh, so-and-so said they're going to get this done, and then you don't talk to them until the end of the jam, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, I got stuck on step 1, and then you're sitting there like, I could have helped you at step 1, why didn't... So I just usually, if we're in the same room, every 5-10 minutes, just walk around and be like, how's it going? All good? Yeah. I've found sometimes, for a good reason, because I've been there, people are a little bit scared to shout out to the whole table, be like, hi, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm screwing up. Help me, please. So if you happen to be of the more producer or project mindset, it's very, really helpful to have one person on the team who's going to just be that person to like tap people on the shoulder or call them up on Discord every now and then and be like, hey, about an hour ago you said you were working on that enemy. Is that enemy still coming along? And either they say yes or they say no. If they say no, it's important that, again, someone on the team is just keeping an eye on who's stuck when and where and what resources they have available to them, whether it's another teammate or even another team, and is pointing them in that direction, because you should be asking for help, but I totally get it. It is hard to ask for help in these scenarios, and having one person on your team to just do those regular check-ins and say, you good, you good, you good, you're not good, hey, go talk to so-and-so, they can help you fix whatever you're having.
Yeah, that's something that I was honestly thinking about, is like, boy, it would be nice to have somebody who's down to take that specific role, because I feel like for the most part you don't get that, and you're lucky if you do. But what I have noticed with a lot of game jams is, believe it or not, despite the fact that you're like crunching and grinding for X amount of time, there's usually somebody at any given moment that's not like in the thick of it with what they're doing. So I think that it's important to maybe assign a person per, I don't know, day, hour, whatever it might be, to go and check in. And if you feel like you're not doing anything, you could be that person who's going and checking in with everybody else. It might feel like it's something like you're not doing anything, so why would you go and micromanage other people? And you might not want to do that and sit there and try and look busy, but it is a very helpful thing to have somebody doing that, because I was that person who was trying to make like a pause screen that just had like go back to game button, and I couldn't figure it out. And if somebody had luckily I was like, hey, because I trusted one person on my team to not judge me too terribly bad for that. But it could have very easily, if I was working with people that I didn't know or people I was trying to impress or work with for the first time, I could have very easily just left that unsaid until we got to the end of the jam. So I think that if you can do that, definitely do that. I also think that, especially since this is more global game jam centered, having that short period of time, you want to communicate as much as possible. I know that it's a short period of time and you don't want to take away from other people doing things, but letting people know when things are done, you can figure out who has more work that they might be able to offload to you. So it might not even be micromanaging other people. It might be, oh, thank goodness you're asking me because I need help with X, Y, and Z. Or can you go and talk to this person because I need art assets? So yeah, communicating as much as you can, because there isn't really time for you to make this like big old game plan as much as we might like to. So doing it in the moment and just kind of keeping up with that and being consistent with that is super important during any game jam.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that, okay, so if you don't have a whole lot going on, it's nice to ask, like, is there anything you'll need help on, anything I can do, that kind of thing. Also, there might come a time where you have to critique something because you might not like the way something is turning out. And my main advice for that is just don't be rude about it. I've had that happen at least twice, and all it results in is hurt feelings and salty attitudes. So, just like, hey, say, hey, what if we do this? What do we think about trying X, Y, Z? That kind of thing. Being constructive and just not, like, negative about it, Yeah.
Yeah, communication is key. If you can't communicate with your team, then you're not going to get anything done. Sometimes I think to myself, like, man, I really don't want to be annoying asking them, like, how their progress is going, but I'm just like, the leader in me is like, you're going to have to be a little annoying if you want to get things done. Of course, I think you should be annoying with some class, of course. So, like, you can, like, hey, is the enemy done? And if they say no, then you can be like, okay, do you need help? Should we change some things around? You can't just be like, okay, get this done, and they're just struggling this entire time, like, I don't know how to get this done. So, it's good to, of course, like, try to get things done, but also try to understand that some things may be more difficult for your teammates. And yeah.
I just want to amplify the quote that you're going to have to be annoying if you want to get things done. I really like that. With class.
Well, that is good. That's a great quote. So final question. I'm gonna pair it with like a closing remark so we can have some time for audience questions as well. How do you take care of yourself physically, emotionally, etc. During the jam, and any remaining miscellaneous advice that may have not been covered up until this point would be a good time to say that now as well. So for me personally, self-care is really important. As I said before, like, if you have never done a jam before, you're in for a surprise because you may not realize just what your own personality is going to be like under these extreme circumstances. And so really, like, you have to make sure that you are at your best so that you can be the best for your team. You can't, as much as maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're in college you feel differently right now because you feel invincible, but you can't just power through like all 48 hours without taking a single nap, without closing your eye at all, and just chugging coffee the entire time and expect to be doing the best you can do. Sure, you'll be up. Sure, you will say you worked all 48 hours, but if you compare the quality of that work to the quality of the work you would have done had you just kind of like a little bit of shut-eye, just saying, scientifically, you're going to do a lot better. So that just, I mean, the pretty basic bare bone minimum, just get some rest eye from time to time. Even like as simple as standing up from your desk and just walking a lap around wherever you are to get the blood pumping again. Because again, just biologically, your brain's going to function better. Your mood is going to be a little better than if you are literally cooped up staring at your screen in, a very close quarters to the rest of your team the entire time. And then, eat if you are the kind of person who is the producer and or project manager on your team, make sure your teammates are eating. It's really easy to get super hyped and excited about what you're working on and then just power through a long period of time without taking a bite of food or drinking any water. And then again, that mood, that, unintentional behavior creeps up on you and you start snapping at people and you're like, why am I doing this? This is my best friend. I don't want to say anything mean to them. So, take care of your physical health. That'll take care of your emotional health. That'll make sure that you and your team are working as quickly and cleanly as possible, and you're not making enemies out of people that could be, in my case, I've got lifelong friends out of the first big jam that I did because we took multiple breaks at which we were just like, hey, you know what? It's 11 p.m. We're going to Waffle House. We're going to have a great time. We're going to come back, and then we're going to finish this. And we just, while we were at Waho, we did not talk about the game. We did not talk about the problems we were having. We were just eating, hanging out, having a good time, getting to know each other, and that just reset the mood. When we got back in, we were like fresh ideas, excited to get going again. So those breaks are really important. And then as far as like closing remarks, real quick, just want to say, because I heard Rob mention earlier at the very beginning that you had a very large team. My team sizes have been on average 2 to 3 people. And then one time, after doing about 10 jams, I challenged myself as a big, big challenge that I barely succeeded at to have a team of 10 people. And I found that to be a huge, huge challenge because, again, I've been, for the past many jams, trying to hold myself to a standard of always finish the jam with a completed game. And wow, did that get so much harder when you have more people on your team. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Please, if it's your first jam, my first jam had 5 people, but it was pretty, like, each of us were still pretty new at our own thing, so we really bit off as little as we could chew. The more people that you have does not mean you make a bigger game. It just doesn't. Please, for your first few jams, try 2, 3, at most 4 people on your team. Work your way up as you find people who are really passionate about project management, because if you don't have that, it's just going to be a bad time. Thank you.
Okay, so as far as self-care, it might sound a little silly goose advice, but set timers to eat snacks. Trust me, you will get into it and you'll get a little too into it, and then like you said, you'll just randomly start getting a little aggressive, and a wise man once said, you're not you when you're hungry. So definitely set timers to bring or to eat snacks. Bring snacks. Set time boundaries with your team. It is 48 hours, but obviously, well, I guess not obvious to some people because some people stay up the entire 48 hours. Crazies. But set time boundaries with your team. Let your team know ahead of time when you're calling it quits for the day, because some people's brains just don't work at certain hours. So make sure that you are open and honest about that, but do that and follow that. Wrap up whatever you're wrapping up if you need to push a little bit further than your time boundary, but set time boundaries, please. Yeah, set sleep boundaries at least. I definitely also recommend to take a day off after the jam if you can. I know that a lot of us are students, so it can be kind of hard, but if that's an excuse to go easy on yourself for a day, there you go. Also, definitely make sure to drink water. Same as sleep, it can affect the way that you're thinking. So sleep, eat, hydrate, all of that good stuff. And then other like miscellaneous tips and tricks that I have, plan to be done with whatever it is that you're doing, like 2 to 5, depending on how long your jam is. I guess 2 hours for global game jam since it's only 48 hours, but plan to be done a little bit in advance because you won't be. Just to put it simply, there's always going to be bugs. There's always going to be stuff that you're like, oh shoot, we don't have a main menu, and that's for some reason critical to the gameplay. And then if you are done 2 hours in advance, then boom, bug testing time, because you never want somebody or one of the judges to come around and play your game and oops, there's a bug that you didn't see. And then also make sure that you put your games onto something online, whether that, I know that GGDA and Global Game Jam in general puts a lot of stuff online, but put it on your own resources. Put it on itch.io. Get everybody on that itch.io. It's just a really easy, especially if you don't already have a portfolio for yourself, it is a really easy way to start having a portfolio for yourself. And then the more game jams you do, the more evidence you have of like, look, I'm cool and I've learned things. So yeah, that's something that I recommend to my club and force them to do is put things on itch.io. Stay in touch with your team. You never know who's going to be lifelong friend. You never know who's going to work at a studio that you really want to work at, and boom, now you know somebody at that studio. And also make plans for your next jam. Take that day off for sure, but make plans to get started again, because it takes a little bit of downtime for you to kind of fall out of the loop. And if you kind of keep those gears turning and keep yourself engaged with making games and learning, you'll just learn so much in such a short period of time. I know that I have. Sorry.
No, you're good. All right, so we're gonna hammer it home. Make sure you sleep. I know some of you think you might not need to, but you do. Yeah, so your mind is going to be fresh and most efficient when you take a nap or just sleep at some amount. And definitely do take breaks, because especially if you're stuck on something, make sure you get up and just do something else for a little while, even if it's just walking around and visiting other teams, seeing what they're doing. Sometimes that's really fun too. You get to meet other people that way. Definitely take showers, because people smell. We have showers here. Let's see. I don't know if the gym is open right now. Last time it wasn't. But we do have a gym where you might be able to take a shower, especially if you're a student here. And then if you're not a student here, there's the engineering building, which has like showers up on the third floor. Not sure when it's open. You'll just either have to get lucky. I would suggest going sometime around noon, because it's probably open at that point. And yeah, are you gonna do the 3 S's or? Okay, so the KSU Game Design and Development Club has the 3 S's that we go over every game jam. Is usually sleep, shower, and support. So sleep, shower, and make sure you support your teammates. Tell them that they're doing a good job, even if they're struggling.
Yeah, just reinforcing what everyone else was saying. Just please focus on self-care as much as you are focusing on making a good game. Don't chug 5 cans of Monster or 5 cups of coffee. You're gonna crash and burn, and then you're gonna like fall out and be like, oh crap, I never worked on my game because I drunk all that stuff. And of course, please shower. If you're gonna like stay, if you're going to be staying over at the buildings, please do not go 3 days without taking a shower. We will notice and you will smell. Mini story about the shower stains. So last year for the game jam, I heard about that the engineering building, had showers in it. And so I tried contacting, the people in the engineering building, hey, can we use the showers? And as soon as I went to their office, it was closed. So I was just like, okay. And so I tried emailing them and to see if maybe I can get a response. Haven't gotten a response back. And I'm like, oh crap. I told people that we would have showers. And so I had to tell people, hey, you may have to like leave and go home to take a shower. Please do not stay and not take a shower. Please don't do that. But then I learned that I got a response back the next day, and they're like, hey, the engineering building is actually like open. You can just go in there. And I'm like, thanks for telling me a day later. But but yeah, with the engineering building specifically, it's open all day, I think. So like you can just go in there and shower. But there isn't soap and there aren't rags or towels. So
It does lock eventually at some point.
but yeah, please don't forget those things. Just be wet without a towel and soap. But yeah, other soap. Some other miscellaneous things. I mean, just the main thing is just have fun, really. It's a competition, yes, but honestly, like, I wouldn't try to be too competitive, like, because being too competitive can kind of like suck the fun out of it, especially if you don't win and then you get mad that you didn't win and get mad at your teammates and it's just not fun. But main focus is just learning new things, collaborating with the team, possibly networking, and having an easier time getting into the industry. Just relax and make a game.
Yeah, quick round of applause for the panelists and all those questions. So now I think we got time for questions, right? Okay, yeah. Who's got questions?
I've got a couple from chat.
Hit it.
More comments. Ron Jones, the artist, says, and if you can repeat this into the mic, the Indie Cluster will be testing jam games that are submitted to them.
The Indie Cluster will be testing games, so be sure to submit your games to the Indie Cluster. I'm sure Ron will share his information somewhere, somehow. Probably through the GGDA Discord.
Oh, you can form a team through the GGDA Discord game jam chat if you're in the Discord. And Dean Borg says, and this actually leads to a really good question, the best part is showing off your work at the end and seeing what everyone else came up with. What do you recommend showing off at the end? Because you don't have long to show off your game.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Brooke. Well, statement, I guess. And yeah, it's really important to just get some people's hands on what you made, because it's a rare opportunity to get like hands-on feedback on what you just made. Obviously, if you're playing someone else's stuff, as I think Rob might have said earlier, be kind and constructive in your feedback. A lot of people just spent a very exhausting amount of time working on this stuff, so even if it's not great, find a way to be constructive about it. Yeah, but what was the question exactly?
What should you show off? I mean,
What should you show off?
At the end to show off. You have a trailer or you do some gameplay.
Oh.
What do you recommend showing to the judges, the other participants, everyone?
Yeah, I show off everything. Yeah, I don't know if y'all have a better answer for that one. You want to say something?
I would try just showing off the best elements of your game, of course. Like, I wouldn't show off the pause screen unless there's something interesting happening in them. But like, the main thing, what do you want people to know about your game, basically? Like, what type of game is it? Is it mainly a platformer? You want to like show off, doing platforms? Is it mainly a racing game? You want to show off, the racing part of it? Just like I said, show off what you think is the coolest part of your game, basically.
So a lot of the KSU jams, we usually have trailers. So definitely make sure you take the time to record some game footage and edit it. You don't have to be great at it. You just have to show off the best elements of your game, or at least what you want to show off. Editing to music is a plus, but you don't have to do that, of course. Let's see. What? I think that's it. You have a question. Sorry.
Okay, fresh take. Along with like showing off the coolest parts of your game, because I think that that's super important, especially for like judging, and if you do want to continue moving forward with it, obviously show off the best parts. But also the parts of game development that I personally think are the coolest and the most interesting are when people talk about how they made things, especially when it's in such a small time constraint like that, because it's either going to be like, oh wow, how did that spaghetti make this, which is always fun. I do a lot of spaghetti. Or, wow, that's actually a really cool way to do that. And you're either sharing your ideas for people to latch onto, or at least humanizing yourself, because we all kind of see everybody else's finished products. And I know that if you have ever done art, you know that looking at your own art piece after however much time you've spent making it, you're just like, this sucks. And you look at everybody else's art and you're like, wow, this is great, because you're just used to your own stuff. So being able to talk about it and learn how other people went about the same thing is always super interesting, and I think is a really important part about especially student game development and indie game development.
Yes, there was a question back there.
What happens if you're on a team and the team sort of explodes
So the question was, what happens if the team implodes? And a follow-up part of that question was what to do about the trailer in that scenario as well. So in general, I mean, teams implode. It happens, and it's a sad reality, and you got to like kind of just hopefully deal with it as best as you can and try not to create any more bad blood than there may already be when that scenario comes up. Besides that, see if your team could, instead of just fully imploding, if it could fracture instead and just have 2 games now out of the original game that was started. Because two teams may fracture over a design difference, and that's okay. You can just have one version of the game that does X and one version that does Y. As for your trailer, I mean, if it really, really implodes, at the end of the day, like, if you don't finish a game, you don't finish a game. It's okay, kind of as has been said before. Point is to have fun. Point is to better yourself and become better at what you're doing. So, yeah.
So, the question of like what happens if your team implodes and you don't really have a game, that has happened before, and those people, I think one time they just flat out lost their footage for the game. So all they had was just a black screen and the music, because that's all they had. And I mean, like, yeah, that's not much, but it's something, you know. So if you literally all you have maybe is like some art or some music, which honestly I think at least have one musician, because like you can do that where you just have music in the background. But yeah, just release what you can show off. If you at least just have something, like at least gotta have something, you know.
Another question in the back. So just to make sure I understand the question, when you say assets, do you mean literally like Unity assets? Okay. So the question was top 3 assets, literally Unity assets, or if you're on Unreal, basically like pre-existing stuff that may be like a tool or something, whether it's art or a game dev tool to bring to a jam. So that kind of relates a little bit to what your goals are. I've wanted to always make games that are compatible with controllers. And so I usually bring Rewired, which is a package that I've bought and been using for my studio for a long time. That helps instantly getting controller support working. Granted, now Unity has a lot of that stuff built in, so you may not need it, but I don't know. I haven't used the built-in stuff yet. The other thing that I usually bring is, so this is actually just a general larger picture advice, and I'll use this to cover the last 2 things here. Each jam, after the jam is over, after I've taken Hannah's well-recommended 1-day break, I'll go through the jam code and find the things that I found most interesting and the stuff that I was like, I've written this code before. I know I've written this code before. I'm going to pull this out of this project and put this into another repo somewhere else for myself for later. And then the next jam, I start with that piece of code. And usually that kind of code is like really foundational stuff. Like the number of times I've had to do the math to figure out if you push the left stick on a joystick and you want a character to aim in that direction. I've written that piece of code like 20 times now. I'm tired of writing it. So after doing it for a jam one time, after the jam was over, I was like, gonna grab that piece of code, that little bit of math that every time I do it, I have to look it up for the 100th time and put this over here. And then the next jam, when we decided to make a twin stick shooter, I was like, done. It's already pointing in the direction I want it to. That's just one example. I have my code bases of carried over code is massive at this point, because every single jam I've learned there's at least one mechanic or one system that is generic enough that I can just pull it out and use it for the next thing.
So are you saying, like, if it works and makes your life easier, use it, but don't use it if you're trying to find a way to make it fit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Okay. Did either of you want to say anything on this topic? About things, assets to bring or set up, start with?
I guess so. So most of the time when I'm doing game jams, I try not to have a whole lot prepared ahead of time. That's just personally how I do it. But yeah, I guess you could, but I think most teams usually make everything during the game jam.
Yeah, I highly recommend not having things prepared actually for the game jam when it comes to assets, because you may not know if the thing that you were like working on wouldn't work at all for the theme. Um, I'm usually someone who's able to come up with ideas pretty fast, so I can't really like give too much advice on like preparing like a lot, but just like I guess be open about like what you want to do. Like not trying to have like your assets be too specific. Just like I guess keep things general.
Code, though, I don't think that's a huge problem.
Yeah, I'll just quickly echo kind of what you said there at the end, which is like the more general the thing you bring, the better. The more specific, the less your teammates will like you for pigeonholing them into a certain aesthetic because you happen to bring, something. So the theme when we won was, shoot, 2016. Andrew, does anyone here do that jam? Because our game was called The Merciful God, where it was a WarioWare-style party game about a group of people trying to get themselves sacrificed to an evil god, and you just do that by competing in a series of WarioWare games. Now I can't remember. Ritual. The theme was Ritual that year. There we go. And so we were like, oh, what if people are like participating in a creepy ritual where they're trying to get themselves sacrificed to an evil god? Yeah, that was the theme. That was what we did.
I love that. Our theme was rebuild. So I think that probably what set us apart from a lot of other people is because we had that Saoirse, who is so awesome with sound design and just music development in general. We did it where you're rebuilding the music, like the lost music. So I think that is probably what set us apart, because rebuild, you would think like, oh, you're rebuilding some type of like physical structure. And there were physical elements that went along with the music, because you need to touch things in games to make things happen. But yeah, ours was rebuild, which I think that it sounds like the themes are pretty kind of general. So that's always good.
And they do make the themes be pretty broad. I did want to say something about the Best in Georgia competition. We are not focused on specifically what you made of the jam or the theme. Each location will nominate one team from their jam to compete in the Best of Georgia competition. And we let the sites decide what their standard is. But we do want them to choose a team that wants to continue working on their game. Once the sites nominate the game, we pair that team with industry mentors, pros, who've been doing this for a long time, generally as producers. And they don't do the work on the game. They help the team figure out what it wants to do over the next month to make their game that much better and that much more commercially viable. Commercially viable for us doesn't mean makes money. It means you can put it into distribution and people want to play it. At the end of a month, at the end of the 30 days, we judge what you've completed to that point. We don't care about what you did at the jam. We want to see what you did over that next 30 days, because that shows a viable team. And the team that at that point has done the best work and has shown it's the most willing to keep going and has a product that it can get into distribution, whether it would ever make money or not, we don't care, but can get in distribution, that group will win thousands of dollars in professional service from lawyers, business managers, game marketing people, and so forth to help them get that game into distribution. So the themes are great, and they make great topics, and the Global Game Jam strives to have very broad themes that can cover a lot of different ideas. And one of the things that they always say is take your first 5 ideas and throw them out, because everybody else in the jam had those exact same ideas. And we love to see those 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th level ideas that come out once you've gotten to that point. But that's the Best in Georgia competition.
Any other questions?
I'll throw out one more. For those of you who have gotten portfolio pieces out of the jams, what did you put in your portfolio? Was it the actual game? Was it the assets you created? What did you put in your portfolio?
Great question. Depends on your role. If you're an artist, you can and should still have a link to your itch page. As Hannah said, your game should be on itch afterwards, no matter its level of completion. and you should have a link to it just to show, hey, this was used as part of a whole. But if you are an artist, 2D, 3D, whatever, be sure to also get those models and get those files and host them separately on your own personal profile website. If you're a programmer and you want a portfolio piece, usually the game itself can speak for itself, but if you, like me, have terrible memory, it's good to just write down some of the things that you accomplished in it, so that when you do go for your interviews and game dev jobs, that and they ask you, hey, tell us about something that you coded, you can tell more than just, I made that game. It's like, the more you can like make narratives out of your experiences, the more you're likely to benefit off of those experiences.
So with not only Global Game Jam games, but with some of the itch.io game jams that I participated in, I got stuff for my portfolio, and I don't really know what I want to do because I like doing a couple things. So I have pulled, obviously I have my itch.io page, which is, I guess, a portfolio in and of itself, but then I have my portfolio website. So you can see the full games on the itch.io page, and some of them are WebGL, so you can play them in browser. But then I also have, if you want more of a deep dive on my portfolio, I have like screenshots and GIFs and all of that good stuff with little explanations, especially for design stuff. You're going to want to do that. Have like your why you did what you did. So yeah, but game jams, great ways to put stuff on a portfolio.
Yeah. So me personally, I put like the trailer, a little explanation about what the game is, and I usually have a link to the download. But generally speaking, you want to make it as easy as possible for the recruiter or person that's viewing your website to like play your game or figure out where it is and all that kind of stuff.
So for my game jam, I actually I don't think my teammate who was programming the game gave me the link to the game. I'm not even too sure if he uploaded on itch.io. But of course for like future game jams, I'm mainly an artist, so I do like to, post my own art in my own website that I do kind of advertise to show off what type of art I can do. So, it is important to not just have like itch.io, but also have like your own website as well.
One more comment from Ron Jones will get you to pass on. He says the best in Georgia winner will get a booth at MomoCon with the Indie Cluster. Free passes to MomoCon.
Yes, the best in Georgia will win a booth at MomoCon. It is a great opportunity to show your game and get some real consumer hands-on time with your game.
Any other questions? Thank you very much to our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.